podcast with Gavin McGay. Open, raw and empowered conversations that can help everyday people to learn techniques to deal with the challenges of everyday life. And just like most of us out there, I am also continually processing the daily challenges that life and business throws at us. So I welcome you to ride with me on this journey of discovery and personal development. Well, today we have a special guest, and we are in deep gratitude of the time he has made available to share with us. David Meltzer is the co-founder of Sports One Marketing and formerly served as CEO of the renowned Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment Agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. He is an author, having written 3 books, Compassionate Capitalism, Connected to Goodness, and Game Time Decision Maker. David is a high-energy entrepreneur, a top 100 business coach, a global public speaker, and has been honored by Variety as Sports Humanitarian of the Year. His life's mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. This simple yet powerful mission has led him on an incredible journey to provide one thing: value. Value in all his content and communication. That's exactly what you'll receive. But it hasn't always been like this. In 2008, David declared bankruptcy and lost over $100 million. You heard me right, folks, $100 million. So I wanted to have a deep dive into David's journey and find out what makes him tick. So join me in welcoming David Meltzer to 100 Breaths.
100 million and 100 breaths, equal in nature. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Dave. Hey, I thought we'd go way back, and I just wanted to ask you, how would you describe your personality when you were living in that $100 million life?
Scarce. It was just a scarce. I was living in a trade and negotiation in a world of either not enough or just enough. Everything was scarce in my world. I was in a competition, competing with everything. Instead of today, I'm completing everything.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. So when did you realize that something about you needed to change? Like, was it in an event you witnessed, something you read, or someone you spoke with?
Yeah, it was 3 different incidences looking back. And the first was just my 30th birthday when I'm recently married my dream girl from the 4th grade, a multimillionaire in my dream house, in my dream life. And my father, who I'd been estranged to for 20 years, gave me the first birthday present in 20 years. And I opened it up and I was in complete joy as I put on a sport coat that perfectly fit me. And as I looked in to see if it said Armani or especially made for my son, he had torn out all the pockets. And I went from joy to rage. And I called my father and I said, "Dad, why are you punishing me on my birthday?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I got your present." He said, "Oh, did you like it?" I said, "No. Why are you punishing me and giving me a jacket I can't wear?" He said, "It's not for wearing. It's for hanging in the closet to remind you that you can't take everything when you're gone, that you'll be buried in that jacket. There's nothing to take with you. You're just like me. Money doesn't buy you love or happiness, Dave. And I need you to learn this lesson." And I told him, "I'm nothing like you. You're a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, an overseller, a back-end seller. I'm nothing like you, and I hate you." The second red flag was 6 years later at 36, when I started running Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment. Not only was I now a multimillionaire, but I had access to things that even billionaires couldn't buy. The Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, Masters, Kentucky Derby, Breeders' Cup, ESPYs, Emmys, Oscars, Grammys, and the list went on. So I went to my best friend, Rob, who had been my friend since the 4th grade. In fact, Rob at 6th grade camp had done me a favor and asked my now wife at 6th grade camp to go steady with me because I was too afraid. And she said, "No, tell him to ask me himself." And he embarrassed me in front of everyone. I threw an egg at my wife, and it took me 20 years to be able to rectify that and make her fall in love with me. But more importantly, I wanted to thank Rob for being a true friend to me. And I invited him to the Masters. He was a huge golf fan, to go with Warren Moon and Wayne Gretzky to the NetJet party. We would fly private and do everything first class like billionaires. And he looked at me and he said, "No, I'm not going." I said, "Rob, what do you mean you're not going? He said, Dave, I don't like what you're doing and who you're hanging out with. And I said, come on, Rob, I'm not doing what those guys are doing. Just come to the Masters. We'll have a great time. He said, Dave, you can lie to me all you want, but I'm really worried because you keep lying to yourself. I'm not going. I told Rob, my best friend since fourth grade, that I hated him and I never wanted to see him again. And 2 weeks later, my life would change forever. I told my wife that I had to go to a business meeting, but I lied to her and I went to the Grammy Awards with a rapper named Little John. And I came home at 5:30 in the morning, a complete wreck, partying all night, lying to my wife. And there she was waiting for me. And as I walked in the door, she said to me, I'm not happy. I'm leaving you. I'm worried about you. I don't want to stay with our three daughters. I don't want to see you ruin your life or mine or even die. You need to take stock in who you were and what you want to become, because you're going to end up dead and I'm leaving. I'm not happy. I told her I hated her. How dare she talks to me? I even went as far as saying, look around you. Who do you think did all this? And I went to bed even more upset, hating my dad, hating my best friend, hating my wife. And I woke up thinking, how can I take their happiness? I know I'm going to take all their money, because money buys happiness in that world of scarcity. Money buys what you want. You buy things you don't need to impress people you don't like. And so I started thinking about what divorce lawyers I could have. How could I get out of this situation? And as I was thinking about this scarce mentality, I looked over in my closet, and for the first time in years, I saw that jacket, that same jacket that my dad had given to me, the same jacket. And I thought to myself, I do not hate my father. I don't hate my best friend. And I certainly don't hate my wife, the love of my life. I hated myself. I was the liar. I was the cheater, the manipulator, the overseller, the back end seller. And so I took my wife's advice and I sat there and I took stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. And I came out with 4 values that I've been living through 16 years now, and enhancing and evolving, writing books and speaking and coaching and TV shows and movies, all about 4 things: gratitude, that gave me perspective; forgiveness, that gave me peace; accountability, that gave me control; and effective communication, that allowed me to have the faith in something bigger than me, that loves me more than my mom, that I could love others with the same. And with gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication, I reconstructed my life. And over the last 16 years, not only have I been able to make more money than I ever have, help more people than I ever dreamed, but be happier than I've ever dreamed as well.
Yeah, that's a really powerful story, but it's a true deep reflection of, and you've just expressed it just beautifully in relation to a man showing vulnerabilities. There's so many men and so many even friends of mine that I know are so closed up because that they haven't sort of grasped what the beauty is in being vulnerable. And when you can actually open up with your vulnerabilities and you can look inside yourself, and you were basically in a similar place where I was. Well, I didn't lose $100 million, but I was certainly trapped in ego, and trapped in myself and trapped in my own self-worth. And as for anyone else around me, it was pretty much, well, you're there and nothing's as important to me as what's happening in my world. So once you can come out of that ego and you can park it and you can acknowledge it and say, hey, I can see you there, but you're not entering my space any longer. So I'm coming into me in my position of accountability, integrity, my value set, and changing my value set. I had to learn the same thing. Once I could stop lying to myself, and once I could start going deep inside, loving myself, that connected this the connectedness of me to others then just started to open and blossom. And that's what I've noticed in you. And I was going to ask you about your dad's jacket story, but you've already shared that, and your little John, the rapper, coming home at 5 a.m. Well, I've been home at 5 a.m. before, and had my ex-wife waiting for me as well. And that was when I was trapped in a world of me. So thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And so what was the process that you went through? Because it's pretty hard you've got to really hit that rock bottom place before you can start to come out. So what process did you undertake, and what guidance did you have, and what mentors did you have around you?
It's a great question. Well, first, I utilized my wife to help me get rid of that which was bleeding me, the wrong people. So I had to fire some childhood friends and other people that were bleeding me, the wrong ideas. So instead of putting faith into money, I started reading some of the things that when I was young led me to a better life, like Napoleon Hill, like Dr. Wayne Dyer. Then I started to study the Course in Miracles, and I started to reach out and write myself transformational literature, and started surrounding myself with Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and Maury Maracy and Sharon Lecter and Blaine Bartlett and Cynthia Kersey. And the list went on, Jim Quick. And then it was Ed Milet. And all of a sudden my frequency changed, and I started to realize that my frequency was my neighborhood. And so I learned quantum healing and theta meditation. I started to utilize my health as a non-negotiable, then my family, then the daily practices of activity I got paid for. So I completely transformed myself. But I like to reiterate one thing, as you know, because you went through a great transformation as well. One from trying to get more of everything in that scarce world, more happy, more healthy, more wealthy, and more worthy, to I am. It took time. It took time. So I started to study time as well. Einstein and Shakespeare and other people. I started studying history to determine human nature and how people were happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy, and what were they doing to interfere with it. And that shifted my paradigm in life to this abundant everything. And I started to look at not what I wanted, but what I was doing to interfere with what I already had. And it was a major transformation and shift in my perspective and my activities. And they have over time, and we're coming on 17 years to be exact, they have aggregated and compound. I started realizing that behavior, just like Einstein talked about the rule of 72 with money and interest and compounding, it also applies to behavior, but it's more valuable aggregate effect or compounding of behavior than money. And let me tell you why. Because money is a quantitative reality. Behavior is not. So good behavior, if we do the right things, we expect instant results. If we do the wrong things, we don't ever expect a bad result. And because they both aggregate the same as money, what happens is most people quit good behaviors because they don't see a result. And most people don't quit bad behaviors because they don't see a result. And so in the end, 17 years from now, you end up with an aggregate of a whole bunch of bad behaviors, and you wonder why you're not where you want to be. And this is, to me, the greatest lesson of these behaviors and values and practices that I've been doing for 17 years is I detach my emotions, my expectations of a positive outcome, and I just learned to enjoy the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit pursuit of my potential. I stopped listening to what other people wanted from me, what they thought, what was missing, what I didn't have, and I started to enjoy the pursuit of what I wanted.
Yeah, it's I totally relate to that, and I totally relate to the fact that the journey takes time. The transformational journey takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. You can get some changes that can happen overnight, but it's you working on you on a consistent, persistent pursuit of your own potential, as you would say. So if you can do that and go inside yourself, and that's where I started 100 breaths from. I started 100 breaths from being out on a bike ride and feeling who was I breathing for today, and why was I breathing for them, and what did that mean to me, and then how could I share that with the greater community? And so 100 breaths and mammals murmurs brought me back into me, which then allowed me to go out to the wider universe to connect with people like yourself, and connect with through that the way that I'm vibrating, the energy that I'm working from, as opposed to being trapped in my old self. And I would say, from your perspective, you're now on a life's mission to empower over 1 billion people. So how did that unfold? Where did that start from? And where are you at on that journey?
Yeah, so it's a beautiful journey that, number one, I had to find my own happiness. And as I formulated values, as I indicated before, of gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication, and then applied daily practices, and then even execution, an execution model of those daily practices, I started to realize that formatically, I had a way to empower people to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun, how to be happy. And all of these different things that I was learning, I could now teach. And at the very same time, my then 13-year-old daughter, one of her best friends committed suicide. And it really hit me hard because as I was on this journey of understanding happiness, I couldn't understand how a 13-year-old little girl could be so anxious, depressed, separate, inferior, superior, to want to take their own life. And so I started doing research on this problem of unhappiness. And I started realizing that around the world, not just in America, but one of the fastest growing causes of death in every demographic, color, height, size, weight, didn't matter, religion, suicide. That this was a growing trend of unhappiness. And it hit me as I'm walking the beach. Oh my gosh, I can help people. I can teach people, and I'm going to do it. And I got scared. I said, this is my life's mission. The hairs were on, my arms were up. I had never felt so inspired. This was God talking to me directly. It was I was just, I read about things like these, right? But I never experienced or believed that they happened, but it absolutely happened to me. It was a calling that I have this ability to do this. So now I'm scared shitless because I lost over $100 million, went bankrupt. We went from 33 homes in San Diego alone to a rented house, rented furniture, and one car with 3 daughters under 10 years old and a pregnant wife, to making it all back. I'm at my beach house. I'm thinking, before this happened on the walk, you know, I want to do anything for my wife to make her happy. I wouldn't be here but for this wonderful woman. I'm so blessed, like this life of mine. Now I'm going to walk into the house and tell my wife that my life's mission, after all of this, making it back, was going to be to empower over 1 billion people on earth to be happy. I thought maybe she would have me committed, but she didn't. But now she asked me the valuable question, how? She said,
Yeah.
how are you going to do it? I'm okay with this. If this is your calling, I have faith in you. How are you going to do it? And it hit me. I'm going to find 1,000 people like Gavin. If I can empower 1,000 people like Gavin to empower 1,000 people, to empower 1,000 people, 1,000 times 1,000's a million times 1,000's a billion. So my mission of empowering over, because I'm not going to limit myself, over 1 billion people is a reality. And slowly but surely, Gavin, I'm collecting 1,000 of you. You are proof of the progress that I'm making because you have the ability to empower with not only the things that I'm teaching and talking about, but all of your great guests and experiences and books that you're reading. They're adding up, aggregating up in good behavior that you're capable of empowering 1,000 people to empower 1,000. So I know that within my lifetime, there'll be 1,000 of you that I leave behind that will easily empower another 1,000 to empower another 1,000, creating a collective consciousness of abundance, of more than enough of everything for everyone. And then we will be happy. And remember, it takes 1 particle of light to overcome 1 billion particles of darkness. So with 1,000,000 and 1 billion consciousnesses of happiness, we're going to overcome all of the unhappiness on earth. We can change the world.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's what called me to you. And it will call me to others and others to others as well. And it's it's quite a humbling feeling and experience. And I've just finished writing my first self-help book, and that book called The Little Book of Noticing. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what have you noticed about people and about the world since COVID?
My biggest epiphany since COVID is time is the dependent variable of all matter. And so because of COVID, we were able actually to utilize time not only to give new meaning to the past, which a lot of times we create interference or resistance of our future by giving a meaning that's not aligned with the trajectory that we want to be on. So we'll take inflection points, defining moments, or even historical occurrences, and we'll give it a meaning of punishment instead of promotion or protection. We'll give it a meaning of interference instead of ease. And so one of those epiphanies was time is the dependent variable of not only my past, but also time in the present change for me. I started to realize that the only thing I was limited in a day was 24 hours. It had nothing to do with all of the other things I thought it had to do with. And that if I could be productive, accessible, and gracious with my time, it didn't matter if I was in my closet, not traveling 200 days a year. It didn't matter that I was having dinner with my family every morning. It didn't matter my gym clothes. It didn't matter there was no Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, Masters, Kentucky Derby, Breeders' Cup, ESPYs, Emmys, Oscars, or Grammy. There was more than enough of everything. And then even more importantly than knowing that the meaning of the past limited me and the 24 hours of a day limited me, but I also realized that I limited me, that I never could overachieve my self-image. And that if I could expand my self-image to a greater or higher frequency, that I could notice more, because what I noticed in the pandemic was that which vibrates equal to or less than me, I could be aware of. Therefore, if I focused in on elevating my frequency, elevating my vibration by being of service and value to others and providing service and value from others to others, that I could elevate my own awareness by elevating my frequency, I could notice more. And time to me was the dependent variable of all matter. And that's what I learned during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can think of that in relation to The Map of Consciousness by David R. Hawkins. And the more we step up that map of consciousness and we get ourselves above, if we can move into that, 500 plus frequency, man, we are just exploding with a different aura and a different energy. And when you behave from that way, it people become um, curious and drawn to you from, I don't know what it is about that person, but I like being in that space. And then once they become affected by that space, they then have the opportunity then to lift their own frequency and vibrate at a different energy as well. So it's the more we can educate people on the awareness around consciousness and the beauty of living in the present moment. And quite often I'll say to people, can you be anywhere other than where you are right now? And the answer to that is no. So I'll say, well, just be there. Be there wholeheartedly and be there. But give people the opportunity to shine as they are without going into the world of judgment and the world of attaching your beliefs and behaviors to their story. Allow them to have their story, and you don't need to become attached to their story. And that's why I put together the little book of noticing. It's about just notice what's around you and let others shine and let them be in their story. And try and live from a world of less is more. Because quite often when you want to have more, you become attached to those things, and then those things have the power, if you don't recognize it, to become your identity. It's like when you were living in your $100 million world, those things became your identity, and that became your personality. So when we can learn to let go of all that, come back to us as who we are here and now, and be detached from the ego, we can become really powerful human beings living consciously that can just share the greater good to lots and lots of people.
Amen. Exactly. And those frequencies as well, speaking of Hawkins, 5 levels of intention. What we do has one frequency. What we say has a higher frequency. What we think has a higher frequency. What we believe has even a higher frequency. And what we feel, and this is what you were saying, is an indicator to notice how we feel. When I'm around you, I feel good. I feel happy. This is the highest level of frequency beyond the truth. And I think it's so important to have people like you, authors like you, speakers like you, that are helping others liberate their life, not just from judgments or conditions, but prejudgments known as prejudice, a preformed meaning to a snapshot of what we think. And you have to realize, as another great author said, we don't know what we don't know. And coming from that place of humility and faith, we can expand, grow, and accelerate together, collaborate and coordinate together to mutually reach a higher frequency, to notice more, because the more we notice, the more we're aware of, the easier it becomes. And we all want to live at ease and get rid of the dis-ease.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I just want to quickly run through some words, and I'd just like for you to share with me just quickly what comes to mind, as I know we're just about out of time. Intention.
Coincidence.
Gratitude.
Perspective.
Sacrifice.
Investment.
Joy.
Happiness.
Giving.
Receiving.
Family.
Love.
Colleagues.
Collaboration.
Success.
Enjoying the consistent, persistent pursuit of my potential.
And another great one of yours is, what was the one about listening?
An intelligent follower is a leader, but listening, there's 3 types of listeners. Is that? So there's interrupters, people who interrupt, they're not interested in what you're saying. Then there's the waiters, people who they're waiting to tell you what they want to say, but they're not listening. And then there's active listening, people that are participating in your perception, learning from your perception, accelerating, growing with you, collaborating and coordinating with your perception to make mutual benefit together.
Yeah, one of the most powerful things I learned about listening is a simple one, and that is listen like what the other person is saying can make a world famous difference to you. So be listening in that space of what they're about to tell you or share with you can make a difference in your life, and
Be
allow
more
them that space.
Be more interested than interesting.
Exactly right. Hey, Dave Meltzer, we thank you for your time here today on 100 Breaths. We know you're a very busy man. I don't know how you do what you do. How many clones are there of David Meltzer out there running around? I can't imagine what your life...
Stay active and accessible, not busy.
Exactly right. Hey, you're filming there today at the Sophie Stadium. That's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we have our office, our studio, our meeting rooms, our conference rooms here. Blessed to be here at the amazing SoFi Stadium here in Los Angeles.
Awesome stuff. Now, I finish off my podcast, Dave, with a question to each of my guests, and it's David Meltzer. Who are you breathing for today and why?
My family, and because I want them to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy.
Awesome stuff. Hey, thank you, Dave. Thank you for sharing us your valuable time here at Gavin McGay with 100 Breaths podcast. And we look forward to connecting again in the future. Any plans for Australia?
Absolutely. I'm coming down there, believe it or not, with Joe Dispenza and Deepak Chopra. So we'll be there in April and speaking in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney. So a blessing to share stages with those unbelievable speakers as well.
Awesome. And how can our listeners connect with David Meltzer?
2 ways. Email me directly. And for your audience, I'm happy to send a book guide exercise for free. It doesn't matter. I'll sign a book, send it to you. No problem. Or just Google me and you'll find me, David Meltzer. So David@dmeltzer.com or David Meltzer, Google me.
Awesome. And let's try and connect when you're out here. That'd be pretty cool as well.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you for taking the time to share with me.
Thank you, David. Enjoyed it. Pleasure.
Take
Bye
care.
for now.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it, folks. The mammal has murmured for this episode of 100 Breaths. And what a absolute gem of a person David Meltzer is. And I was fortunate enough to be interviewed on David's Office Hours television show. That will be going to air early in 2023. And that was quite an experience as well. He's connected with some amazing human beings. And as you've just heard, he's coming out with Deepak Chopra and Joe Dispenza into Australia next year. And make sure you get along and see the man in person. I'm sure you'll pick up plenty about how life is lived at that particular level of frequency and energy and abundance. And that's what he's all about. And if you jump on and follow a little bit about Dave, you'll see just how busy that man is. So I was in deep gratitude of him taking the time to give us 30 minutes today for this episode of 100 Breaths. So the Mammal's Murmured, thank you. Get along. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please share with your friends, like, subscribe, hit the notifications button. Do all of those funny things, ding, ding, there, here and everywhere. And be sure to catch us next time around on 100 Breaths, the podcast. Bye for now.